Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today I am going to be doing a video. It's an opinion, but also something that I find, relevant to the point where I'll record a video on it. Obviously you guys let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me, what you think on it. But I thought this would be a fun video to record, and that's why Polaris changed everything. Now, I'll definitely get into what I mean if you don't know what I mean, because I feel like a lot of people they either don't remember or don't realize the repercussions that Polaris had on this entire game. So I'm going to go into that. And I'm going to divide this video into a few sections, starting with questline and story-wise. So, first things first. We just got done with Chrysalis, and before Chrysalis, Azteca. Two of the longest worlds in this entire game. They were painful, just extremely long, but their stories were interesting, and we hunted down Morganth and finally finished her off. To hunt down Morganth, we had to accept shadow magic into our bodies, kind of, basically take it and use it so that we could beat Morganth. And along the way, we met a dude named Old Cobb. Old Cobb, which later is revealed to be Grandfather Spider, helps us defeat Morganth, but is actually kind of a bad dude. I mean, not really in the end. You find out in Imperia, but that's beside the point. He releases his Sons of Shadow upon different worlds to create chaos. Three of them, the Rat, the Scorpion, and the Bat. The Rat is the one that we find in Polaris. Now, a few things about the story of this is that first, it drew away from Morganth, which was long overdue, because we've been, not long overdue, but we'd obviously been focused on Morganth for 5 worlds at this point, and a story change and something new was very important and very it was much needed for this world. So the shift away from Morganth and onto a new villain was really, really nice. Second part of the story that I thought was very interesting is the actual shadow aspect of it. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, basically, right, our wizard had to take shadow into them, accept the shadow magic, and use it so that they could win against their enemies. But we later find out that the shadow magic is actually corruption. It corrupts you as a person, and Grandmother Raven warns us against this, but we refuse to listen and keep using shadow magic anyway. And I think that Polaris begins, like, it kind of shines light on that. Like, Grandmother Raven comes and is like, hey, you've been up to no good, this is bad. And I think it's really interesting that our wizard has to go through that they face that challenge of shadow magic and shadow magic corrupting us. So that's the first things. That's the first part of the quest line I want to focus on. The next part is graduation. Now, this game came out in 2007, and Polaris came out in 2015, which means for about 8 years, there was no graduation. We finally graduate when we get to Polaris, which is really cool. And then we go to the Arcanum, which is interesting as well. It completely changed the game in regards to a few things. First off, we're now Arcanum alumni and not Ravenwood alumni. We've graduated from Ravenwood, but also it opens up new areas for the story, new characters, making the game much more interesting in my opinion. So that's kind of the quest section I want to focus on. This basically, that section was, I wanted to focus on why the quest line was changed with Polaris. Now I want to focus on combat, because this is probably the most important one. This will be combat and game features. So first thing, when Polaris came out, the crit update also came out. Not the new crit update, the old crit update. So what it did is it completely restructured the crit system so that critical was significantly less now, and block was basically useless. This crit update nobody really liked, I don't think. I don't know why they did it still, but it existed, it was there, and we were stuck with it. That changed a lot, but it wasn't as bad as we originally thought for one reason. and that is that they did a hard reset, a clean wipe on the enemies and the enemies' health. If you've never been to Polaris before, Polaris enemies and bosses have the health of Avalon bosses. And like between Avalon and Azteca, which is very, very nice, honestly. It's rather refreshing in the fact that it's easier, but not, it's not insanely easy to the point where, you know, nothing, it's not easy to the point where you feel like you're doing nothing, but it's easier to the point where you don't feel like you're going through another Azteca or Chrysalis, which is incredibly important after those 2 long worlds. So that's something as well that changed. Oh god, what was the next thing? I had another thought on my mind, but I can't remember exactly. But another thing I'd like to mention, and this kind of goes along with this, is the fact that this world is much shorter than the last 2. I've already kind of mentioned that, but what I want to point out specifically is that there are 98 quests in Polaris. Last night I went from quest 20 to quest 80 in the span of about 2 to 3 hours. It's definitely a shorter world, right? But the fact that it went from 277 quests in Chrysalis to 98 in Polaris was insane for this game, and it set a precedent because the next 3 worlds have all had a similar amount of quests to Polaris, slightly more, but not nearly as much as even, say, Avalon has. Avalon has a lot as well, which is rather interesting. But that's really all. That's all I wanted to go about was those different sections of the game. So going over a recap, what's changed. Story has changed significantly. Implications for our character that hadn't been there in the past with shadow magic. Grandmother Raven possibly turning against us because we're using shadow magic. And a steer away from Morganth to the Rat and Grandfather Spider. Combat features, obviously the crit system changed, but in turn the boss's health was kind of lowered, the bar was lowered, and the health is significantly better nowadays, which is great. The Arcanum obviously was a really cool feature, and then obviously the quests and it being significantly shorter. So that's all I really wanted to go over, is that's how Polaris changed this game dramatically. If you can't really see after all that I mentioned that it changed the game, like fundamentally changed, it shifted the entire game in a different direction. I don't really know what to tell you. Feel free to argue with me in the comments, but what I want to know is, and respond to me in the comments with this, is what world do you think most dramatically changed the direction of this game? As I said, I think it was Polaris, but there's obviously good arguments for Celestia. There's good arguments for even maybe Imperia, maybe? I don't know. Chrysalis, maybe? One of those worlds, but I think Celestia and Polaris will probably be the 2 more popular choices. So let me know if you like this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a time. You can use the channel membership button if you want. And I thought this was a good video. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed talking about my thoughts, and obviously I just went through Polaris on my death, so it's kind of fresh in my mind. Expect maybe a Mirage video in the future when I go through Mirage, just because I'm interested in that. But that's all for today. If you enjoyed, do the things I already said to do, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Have a fantastic day.